There is a widespread yet erroneous belief that the concept of information warfare refers solely to intelligence conflicts between nations. However, this war is waged far beyond the military and intelligence arenas, executed with exceptional finesse in the battle to obscure awareness, permeating nearly every aspect of human activity without exception. Politically, economically, culturally, intellectually, and even religiously. For instance, it is certain and beyond doubt that beneath the Suez Canal lies an ancient pharaonic treasure trove containing 1,400 artifacts, among them a golden pyramid weighing 1,200 tons and a silver obelisk standing 3.5 meters tall. This is a fact known to everyone, except for the oblivious and the ignorant. Would you like to be among the oblivious and the ignorant? Of course, no one does. And thus you are inclined to believe this blatant falsehood, or at the very least, let it pass unchallenged, simply because I have employed certain techniques of information warfare to present it as a seemingly credible fact, reinforced with precise figures, despite being nothing more than nonsense. You initially received this information with skepticism, yet I manipulated your mind and emotions with nothing but carefully chosen words that subtly influence the subconscious, such as "it is certain and beyond doubt." Furthermore, I incorporated numbers that, at first glance, appear to be the result of meticulous research, lending the statement an air of legitimacy as though it were grounded in verifiable knowledge. Therefore, before falling prey to such deceptive statements, you must ask, who has confirmed this? Why is it beyond doubt? Where did these figures come from? Can this claim be substantiated through direct observation or scientific experimentation, or is it merely an opinion? Yet, I did not grant you the opportunity to ask these questions. Instead, I followed my assertion with an insult, discouraging you from thinking critically or questioning, lest you risk being labeled among the ignorant. This is the unembellished essence of information warfare beyond the military and intelligence domains. In essence, it is the manipulation of language to target the subconscious mind, employing terms that instill ideas as though they are grounded in undeniable truths, bolstered by precise figures, calculations, and statistics. Words are carefully chosen to leave a lasting psychological imprint, serving a particular agenda, when in reality, they are mere fabrications designed to implant a specific conviction in the recipient's mind. These notions are then reinforced through repetition and granted space to take root, flourish, and ultimately shape an individual's future perspectives. The media consistently employs these techniques to manipulate minds, especially when wielding significant influence, supported by a vast army of parrots who mindlessly repeat the same nonsense over and over, sometimes using innovative strategies such as denial and shock. When you see the media persistently repeating a negated statement, it may be a subtle way of nudging your subconscious to entertain its opposite. Alternatively, it can be a means of playing on emotions, twisting them until they work against you. One of the most famous examples of this is the controversy surrounding the Satanic Verses, a novel that insulted Islam and its prophet. The book sparked outrage across the Muslim world, with demands for retribution against its author, the British Indian writer Salman Rushdie. The uproar reached such intensity that, in 1998, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khomeini issued a fatwa calling for Rushdie's execution, offering a bounty of $3 million to anyone who would carry out the sentence. In doing so, albeit unintentionally, Muslims themselves launched a massive publicity campaign for both the book and its author. A similar tactic was used by the cartoonist who published offensive depictions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He employed the element of shock, triggering a form of information warfare that led many outraged Muslims to widely circulate the very images they sought to condemn, repeating them in anger, invoking "May God judge him," unaware that they had unwittingly become amplifiers for the very propaganda they despised. To be clear, Defending one's beliefs is a duty that must be upheld through all legitimate means. However, the adversary often capitalizes on the sincerity of those who rush to defend their faith impulsively, grasping the blade instead of the hilt, injuring themselves before they can even wield it against their foe. This is the deception at play. Reckless reaction can turn into a weapon against its wielder, weakening the argument rather than strengthening it, and rendering its bearer an easy target for doubt and distortion. Thus, it is not enough to stand on the side of truth. One must also wield wisdom in its defense. The choice of method is as crucial as the cause itself, lest the enemy seize upon our impulsiveness to shift the balance in their favor. The media is a formidable tool in shaping public opinion and steering societal narratives. It facilitates the spread of misinformation and employs psychological manipulation to direct audiences towards specific viewpoints. Social media further amplifies this effect by fueling controversy through sensational headlines designed to attract attention, often at the expense of the truth. Moreover, the manipulation of images and videos can fabricate illusions or subtly implant certain messages into the subconscious, making audiences susceptible to adopting distorted perceptions without realizing it. This phenomenon grows even more perilous with the proliferation of advanced algorithms, which curate content based on users' past interactions, effectively trapping them in intellectual echo chambers that reinforce their existing beliefs while limiting exposure to different perspectives. In light of this reality, critical awareness among the public becomes an indispensable necessity. Individuals must verify sources of information, distinguish between facts and deception, and resist being swept away by sensational headlines or manipulated imagery without deep analysis. The media battlefield is no longer merely a competition over news. It has become a war over perception itself, where public consciousness is molded according to hidden agendas that serve specific interests. This underscores the need to develop an intellectual immunity against media misinformation and to rely on diverse and credible sources to extract a picture that is closest to the truth. However, the effectiveness of this manipulative machinery diminishes when it targets aware and discerning minds. Such minds possess the ability to engage in logical analysis, connect events, and construct a clear and accurate understanding of reality. This is precisely why societies are often deprived of genuine knowledge and denied access to precise concepts, ones that might empower them to incite radical transformations. This notion was eloquently articulated by the French physician and thinker Gustave Le Bon in his renowned book The Psychology of Peoples, where he stated, "The transformations that lead to major systemic changes do not stem from the movements recorded in history books. The conquest of one nation by another, political upheavals, and popular revolutions are merely visible effects. The true causes lie in the unseen shifts that alter the thoughts, emotions, and orientations of masses. The masses are the true driving force of any society, and whoever masters the art of controlling this force can undoubtedly steer it in whatever direction to serve their interests and fulfills their objectives." Since human beings are perpetually susceptible to emotional and ideological contagion, inciting sentiments can make an individual so fiercely devoted to a particular cause that they are willing to die in its defense. This phenomenon is not a product of the modern age, but rather an extension of a deep-rooted psychological inclination within human nature, where collective emotions override individual reasoning, compelling people to adopt extreme positions without careful scrutiny or critical thought. This influence becomes even more potent when reinforced by an information ecosystem or social climate that fuels these emotions, whether through repetitive emotional rhetoric or by stoking fear and resentment. This process creates a state of psychological fervor, pushing individuals toward decisive actions without fully grasping their consequences. Incitement is not merely about stirring emotions, it is about reshaping convictions, turning ideas into dogma, where any attempt to question or reassess them is seen as betrayal or weakness. Within this dynamic, groups solidify into unified entities bound by emotion, yet at the same time, They lose their ability to engage in dialogue or critical thinking, making them easier to manipulate and exploit for objectives that may not serve their true interests. Naturally, this ideological contagion spreads among members of a society that is always primed to accept and internalize the narratives imposed upon it. People embrace these ideas, defend them vehemently, and adopt a rigid loyalty to them, giving rise to a form of collective hysteria that unites individuals under a shared emotional frenzy, often leading to irrational and unwarranted acts of aggression. Thus, it should come as no surprise to witness a society passionately supporting a dictator or chanting en masse for the downfall of democracy. This is the outcome of a masterfully manipulated consciousness, orchestrated by the media to engineer sweeping social transformations, culturally and politically. When scrutinizing the tactics of information warfare, which heavily relies on the shock factor as a means to incite collective outrage and sway public opinion, one can clearly observe its manifestation when a media personality raises questions that cast doubt on religious tenets and challenge historical texts. This paves the way for a broader scheme aimed at undermining the credibility of the Quran itself, as part of a meticulously crafted agenda designed to unsettle convictions and provoke emotional and intellectual turmoil. Similarly, when a young woman defies societal values by sharing indecent images of herself, some may denounce her as immoral, threatening her while inadvertently amplifying her exposure. Meanwhile, an opportunistic journalist spews ignorance under the guise of analysis, securing the young woman political asylum in a Western country or bolstering his own notoriety, thus positioning himself for a grander confrontation against minds unwittingly working against their own interests. The wiser course of action would have been to let falsehood perish in silence and allow truth to thrive through remembrance. By ignoring such provocations rather than engaging with them, one denies them the undue momentum they do not deserve. For it is the deliberate or inadvertent media frenzy that lends these incidents a significance far beyond their worth, transforming an otherwise insignificant individual act into a public controversy debated across platforms. Thus, impassioned reactions become fuel for insidious schemes designed to incite discord and preoccupy minds with futile battles. Was it not the case that, in the prophet's time, peace be upon him, poets who rejected his message composed verses mocking and defaming him? Indeed, many did. Yet, why have those poems not endured? Was it because Islam prevailed and selectively erased them from historical records? While this assertion may subtly imply bias, it remains a plausible explanation. However, the true reason is that the early Muslims were not intellectually feeble. They recognized that disregarding falsehood strips it of its power. Thus, they did not afford slander more significance than it deserved, nor did they unwittingly act as its promoters. As a result, those defamatory verses faded into oblivion, surviving only as relics of weak arguments and feeble rhetoric, while the words of truth alone stood the test of time, resonating across generations. Given that forgetfulness is an inherent trait of human nature, the manipulation of awareness and deception of minds thrive upon this very characteristic. People are quick to overlook countless achievements in the face of a single misstep or even a statement deliberately misconstrued. The adversary seizes upon such lapses, magnifies them, and weaponizes them in an information war against a once trusted figure, rendering them unworthy of confidence. Thus, the truth is systematically eroded, and its bearers are discredited in favor of an army of deceivers, leaving the source of righteousness obscured amidst a cacophony of falsehoods. For instance, the renowned Islamic thinker Sayyid Qutb, may God have mercy on him, is often quoted as saying, "The Islamic nation must undergo rebirth, and birth necessitates labor, and labor is accompanied by pain." However, since history is penned by the victors, his words have been distorted, and the public, unwilling to investigate for themselves, have surrendered their judgment to the interpretations of others. Consequently, this gentle intellectual, known for his enlightened thought, has been misrepresented as the founding figure of terrorism, the ideological patron of extremist factions, and an advocate of violence and radicalism. His invaluable writings, which are rare intellectual treasures, have thus been relegated to the forgotten shelves of history. Thus, the intellect is stifled and awareness is stripped away, for we fail to remember that all human beings err and succeed in equal measure, and that no one is above critique. In this way, the true source of knowledge is lost, replaced by the ignorant and the parrots who merely echo hollow rhetoric. Absurdities turn us into a laughingstock, like the tale of the girl whom God allegedly transformed into an animal for stepping on the Quran, or the cow that miraculously spoke and uttered the Islamic testimony of faith, or the divine name inscribed on an egg, formed by a tree, or traced by planes in the waves of a tsunami. Exalted is God above such trivialities. He is far greater than these superstitions, and he does not require such fabrications to prove his existence. Your adversary knows this well, yet deliberately drags the discourse into the realm of myth as part of the information war, diverting it from its true essence. He constructs endless backdoors through which he infiltrates your mind, manipulating your perception and concealing the glaring truth behind ever-evolving tactics and an unrelenting psychological battle. And yet, his greatest fear remains knowledge itself. Do not expect him to grant you access to it. Instead, he misleads you through an education system designed not to enlighten, but to subjugate, an endless stream of degrees and certificates that amount to little more than stamped paper, reducing individuals to mere beasts of burden laden with books, devoid of true understanding. His objective is not to cultivate free thinkers capable of critical reasoning, but to produce minds conditioned to memorize rather than comprehend, to chant slogans without grasping their meaning. Thus, he designs curricula where the most profound questions remain conspicuously absent, occupying minds with superficial matters that drain their energy without offering insight. He fabricates a society drowning in trivial details, blind to the essence of truth, and erects an educational system that breeds only followers adept at compliance. But those who dare to see beyond the veil, the rare minds capable of independent thought, pose a genuine threat to his order, an order that thrives only in the shadows of ignorance. Do not be fooled into thinking he will arm you with the means to challenge or surpass him. The intellect and free thought are his greatest adversaries, a reality as plain as daylight, yet one we fail to perceive, for they have hidden the sun itself, casting its light beyond our reach so that we remain blind. Thus, the chasm between the awakened and the slumbering minds widens, and the boundaries between illusion and reality blur, until distinguishing between the two becomes nearly impossible. Amid this fog of thought, charlatans multiply, fortune tellers, palm readers, and self-proclaimed prophets of the future, leading minds astray on a journey of delusion. People become engrossed in astrology, energy healing, and the supernatural, all distractions meticulously designed to sever them from reality. Thus, the collective intellect is rendered fragile, easily manipulated, as masses are deceived into believing they possess knowledge while drowning in illusions crafted to distance them from true awareness. In this state, the media exerts absolute dominion over their minds, fabricating imaginary enemies and concocting false causes, luring them into battles that serve only the unseen puppeteers who wield control from behind the curtain. The crowd becomes a herd, easily led by those who excel in stirring emotions rather than engaging intellect. The foolish are exalted as leaders, while freethinkers are vilified as adversaries. Truth is obscured, deception is embraced, liars are celebrated, and the honest are condemned. The masses, blinded by manipulation, forge idols of paper and follow leaders who march them toward ruin. Despite humanity's scientific and technological progress, it continues to stumble into the same trap, cheering for those who rob them, defending those who enslave them, and waging wars on behalf of those who strip them of their freedom. For instance, in Nazi Germany, as Hitler drove 80 million Germans toward famine and destruction, they chanted in unison, "Heil Hitler." At the time, Joseph Goebbels, the infamous Nazi propaganda minister, uttered a single sentence that encapsulated the entire predicament. Whenever I hear the word culture, I reach for my revolver. Are you beginning to grasp my point? Are you still wondering why this man speaks with such relentless verbosity? Do not be hasty. The tunnel stretches long before us. We have not even opened the door yet.